Hey guys, Greg Melita here with Jiu Jitsu Motivation Podcast. I'm with Brian DeLuca again. Today we have an awesome guest coming on, Riccardo Baleia, Ammendolia. And it's a real pleasure to have him on. I worked with him while working with the Kasai show, and just seeing what's been coming together with Flow Sports and Flow Grappling, what they've done for the sport. We definitely had to have him come on today. He's also got his own personal YouTube channel that is the most amazing old school classic jiu-jitsu matches. Like, this is stuff that, you really haven't seen out there, that's really being rediscovered out there. Awesome to see, because, coming up through the ranks, a lot of what we've seen in the 90s in jiu-jitsu and sport jiu-jitsu is really what pushed the sport. And a lot of those matches have not been seen. So it's really awesome to have his channel to see just where that all came from. So, Riccardo, appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. We haven't spoken in a little while, but stoked to see what you guys are doing. You're always doing some cool stuff online, so pleasure to be here, and appreciate the plug for the channel. I'm trying to, make the old school cool again, as best I can with, showing some of these old matches, and it's some of those matches are pretty important, like you said.
Yeah,
there's some very, very important stuff to happen. There's a lot of history in the sport. So I try to, put some of those out there because I know nobody's seen them before, or a lot of people haven't seen them, and I'm just trying to contribute my own little way. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Do you find you're even rediscovering stuff or discovering new things that are old? I guess rediscovered, we could say, as you're finding these old matches, like, oh, look how they did this that way, or look at this really technique that no one's been doing,
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of stuff that, like, I remember somebody posted the other day of Fabricio Verdum against Leo Leite from, like, the 03 Worlds Finals, and he did basically like a De La Riva sweep to Berimbolo. You know what I mean? Like, before it was cool, you know what I mean? So, I mean, much like anything in jiu-jitsu, I think people did it, but it didn't certain things didn't catch on and didn't get popularized and become like a thing until later, until, more technology came out and more people saw like, different positions and sort of developed systems of it and so forth. So, yeah, there's techniques that that you still see today in the old school, and then there's matches that I'm like, oh man, I didn't even know this happened, and then I'm rediscovering them and putting them out there. So, yeah, always something new.
I mean, that's usually how we see how that had happens there. Now, is this your own like treasure trove of footage? Because I mean, a lot of this stuff has not. Like I've seen some of this old school stuff on like On the Mat, back in the day, or the MMA.tv forums, or even SureDog. Like you'd see some like really good gems like come up, and then you're like, oh man, this is gold. If only it was uploaded or like cleaned up or something. So is it like a combination, or is it still top secret stuff, man? What do you got?
It's a combination. I have some of the old stuff from Brazil. And then some stuff that I filmed, some stuff that my friends filmed that I traded. The thing is, in reality, like a lot of this was done and no one really thought to save it or preserve it because they didn't have any foresight that there would be, any interest in the future. And for me, I grew up with jiu-jitsu. I never really had any other sports that I liked. So I was like, oh, this is my treasure chest. You know what I mean? Like, so I saved all these. I left them at my parents' house. And then recently, a couple of years ago, I went back and sure enough, like I asked my parents, I'm like, Ma, did you throw out that box of VHS tapes in the garage? He's like, no, they're on top of the fridge. So I went there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still have like all these, so then I just started, popping them in my old VHS TV. And started transferring them, and like I said, some of them I traded, some of them I filmed myself. There's some stuff that, I haven't even put everything out yet. There's a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool rolling, a lot of cool tournaments that it's going to blow people's minds. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it was even like that. I mean, the one roll I always used to watch all the time was that roll with Leo Vieira and BJ Penn in Hawaii, like little like rolls like that, or like for a lot of people, just like gold, you know what I mean? And, I'm always getting on you because all the BJ Penn footage is my thing, man, Yeah. But yeah, I think like stuff like that, like little stuff like that could really be something, awesome for the sport. And then speaking of that, like what is I don't think a lot of people realize like your training background, your history, your lineage and all that. So let's go into that a little bit. I don't think a lot of people know about that.
Yeah. So I started training late 90s, obviously as a kid in high school, I saw the UFC and I was like,
Yeah.
this, I wanted to get into it. My dad was a karate instructor when I was like, very, very small. And he taught at the university here and he had like, big following and stuff at the time. And I always liked martial arts. So I was into Bruce Lee and karate and stuff. So it turns out the karate school I was training at started teaching like grappling classes after the UFC came out. And, what it was is basically we would just get like, the Gracie basics and whatever we could find, even magazines, and just start like, looking at the techniques and then practicing, amongst like maybe 5 of us. And then, then we kind of started training like officially like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, probably like 97, something like that.
Nice.
We went to Carlson Juniors, spent 2 weeks in Chicago, trained there. It was awesome.
Wow.
And then in 99, we went to Romero Jacare's, the Alliance Academy in Atlanta. And that's where like I got to like, make some amazing friends and also like, meet like some of the idols of mine at that time, like Leo Vieira, Comprido, Terere. And I made friends with them, they're still today. And, so I started training with like the Alliance affiliates here. And then around 2006, I opened up a fight shop. So my training just kind of went like, slowly down. And, I was, and then around 2006 that happened. And then around 2008, my friend opened an academy. I started jiu-jitsu again. And then, at that time I was already a brown belt. And then we hooked up with the Mendez brothers in 2010. And then in 2012, I got my black belt from Hafa Gi. I was their first black belt ever, actually. I didn't get my other belts to them. But I got my blue, purple, brown through Romero Jacare from Alliance, who's like the man. But I just stopped training at the affiliate here. And then my buddy opened up. We affiliated with the Mendez brothers. So it was just like a perfect fit. So a couple years after that, I got my black belt. And it was the first guy. It was kind of cool. Didn't go without its punishment. I had a big target around my back every time I was go visit academies in the States. They're like, black belt? Where are you black belt from? Like, they're like, let's roll.
Show me some ground balls and leg drags.
Exactly. And they're like, Jimmy, get the video camera. We're gonna mess this Canadian.
That's right. They're right. They're making footage for you now.
Nothing worthwhile to watch. Nothing, certainly. So
now, when did your nickname come about?
So in 99, when I went to Jacare's, there was this guy there named Bull Shaw. And he was Bull, like what do you guys think when I say Bull? He's a big dude, right? Like So this guy was like maybe 300 something pounds, like almost 7 foot tall, just massive guy. He was the gentle giant, but that's what they called him. His name was Robert Shaw, but they nicknamed him Bull Shaw. And I was jokingly, I asked one of the guys like, oh man, he's a bull. I'm like, I feel like a beached whale on the mat sometimes. How do you say that? I was like, how do you say that in Portuguese? And then, the guy that was there, black belt, buddy of mine, Felipe Zico, he's like, oh, some Baleia tarado or something like that. So the next day I'm rolling with him and he grabbed me, he was trying to lift me and he's like fucking Baleia. And then he just kept calling me that. He's like just kept calling me that after. Then the next day Jacare called me that. And then like sometimes like, if they were talking about me to other people, they'd be like, oh, that Canadian guy. They're like, who? They're like, Baleia. And they're like, oh. So it's just kind of like a nickname that stuck. I'm not really proud of it, but at the same time, it kind of, differentiates me from some of the other people in the industry. So it's cool.
No, it definitely does. Yeah. And then also I had a couple of different questions for you too. As far as how did you get started in like the whole getting involved with like flow sports, and then how did that develop into, the flow grappling and what it is today?
Yeah, so I've always been around like tournaments, running my own, promotions here, helping out the community, getting events out there. And I just kind of, helped since like around 2004 doing my own events, and then like helping other events come to Canada, like the Abu Dhabi Pro, ADCC trials. I started working with the guys that do the trials in the States as well. And just through that, I started commentating. And then I started commentating in 2009 all the way up to like 2014. And then in 2015, and so all that time I was doing like World Pro on the Fight Network, ADCC stuff. And then I did Ultimate Absolute in New York with Black Rob there, a couple years ago. And then I started to do some other stuff. Like I was like the first Canadian to like get flown out to Brazil to commentate Copa Podio, and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So I was just like making my name as like a commentator, and then eventually in 2015, Flo asked me to commentate the Abu Dhabi Grand Slam in Rio because like they needed somebody that spoke Portuguese, they needed somebody with experience. So I went down to Brazil with them. I met the owners, one of the owners, some of the senior management there. Then I kind of helped, and then they were like, "Oh, like not only can you speak the language, can you commentate, but you like know everyone here, like you know everyone." So from there, we just kind of things transpired, and I stayed on, as a contributor. I do my own little show now. I do breakdowns. I kind of help those guys out from time to time with some other stuff. But that's kind of it. I'm more of a contributor than I don't. Some people take credit for starting Flow Grappling. That certainly wasn't me. It wasn't AJ Agazarm either. And so I'm just one of the guys that helps out. They have a full-time crew there. Guys like Howell, Chase, Sears, Corey, Reed, which these guys are awesome. They're just like they work really, really hard on kind of growing the sport. And I talk to those guys all the time, and I contribute in my own way to Flow. But that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. Yeah, those guys were awesome to work with at Kasai, and it was a really cool experience. And your show is Baleia's Breakdown on Flow Grappling, right?
Yeah. I do a Baleia's Breakdown show on Flow. And, I started off, I was like, oh, man, I just want to start getting some of like the OGs of the, and I did that for a while. And now I try to get guys that maybe either are going to fight in like a major show or just fought or, guys that are a little bit more on the pulse of what's happening today. I kind of strayed from the OG stuff, but I was also doing my own podcast on my YouTube channel. I actually might bring it back to kind of, do more of the OG stuff a little bit as opposed to the newer stuff. And yeah, it's just, I like to talk about jiu-jitsu my own way, much like yourself. Like I don't geek out too much on the technique. I like the story aspect. I like the culture. I think jiu-jitsu is, if it's just about the geek stuff, it's not everyone's going to like it. You know what I mean? Like the geek technique stuff. It's cool once you get into it, but to get people into it, sometimes you got to story tell. Sometimes you got to tell them about all these cool things that happens around the match. So I try to talk about jiu-jitsu and break jiu-jitsu down in more ways than just like, what grip the person's using or what defense against the leg lock the guy's using. You know what I mean? So
what are some of your favorite stories you've come across, man, while doing this?
I don't know, man. I've had some fun encounters. I've been hung out with some. I don't know if I can tell all the. Some of those. I've had some wild times with Henzo and some of the guys. But I just think like, one story that I was like, it was kind of cool that I got was I was in Atlanta in 2003. This was like one of those stories where like, is this actually happening? So I was in Atlanta in like 2003, and we were there, and Alliance was having like they were still into MMA and like Valley Tudo at that time. They had a rivalry with another gym that was local in Atlanta, and the rivalry was bad. Like these guys would like almost like fight like fist fight. Not so this is like real fighting, not like just yelling and pushing on a jiu-jitsu match, right? There was an MMA show. It was actually called Fight Party. And it was like the Alliance guys, like 4 or 5 of them against like 4 or 5 of the guys from the other team. And at the end of the night, pretty much all the Alliance guys won. And then Jack Ray went in the ring and was like kind of like like whatever. And then one of the other guys from the other team hopped in the ring and like squared up with him. So then like Leo Vieira jumped in, and then like almost like 2 teams just like almost erupted into this whole brawl. And I was just like, holy shit, like this is really happening. Like, you know what I mean? I was like right in the middle of it because I was there just like, I was like, oh yeah, like let's just control the situation. But like everyone literally was just about to like just destroy each other, and then cooler heads prevailed. So that was interesting. It was a little different than like just some yelling at a local jiu-jitsu tournament. That was an interesting moment for me. I mean, I had some other moments in Brazil. I got a funny story where we went to go pick up the mats from this dude, and he was like showing me like an axe, like how he used to kill the debt collectors and stuff like that. Like I've seen some things. I've seen some things, and I've been around some funny people. But I got to keep most of the names out of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You never know what you're gonna find.
No.
That's funny. But yeah, the just seeing like where the sport's going now. I mean, now you got who's number one on Flow, and you kind of see the evolution, right? I mean, especially you started in the late '90s. I started in 1999. Really from those old days, and going from like seeing the movie Choke and getting on the mats and really living into the culture, and then to see over the years kind of. You see the rules changing, you see the sport just evolving like insane. You see a lot of people, switching to trying to preserve, okay, let's not get too crazy. Let's stick with the old school and the self-defense. Let's not do anything. I mean, I remember back in the day when X-Guard and De La Riva came about, that was considered this crazy new school thing. That a lot of people didn't want to even entertain, to where now that's even considered something old. And now, I mean, being in the front, on the front lines of all these new shows like you see the rule sets change, constantly. You're seeing who's number one now, the sub-only format. What's your opinion kind of like the snapshot of these 20 years of the evolution, and you're seeing, the leg lock game, the gi guys, a lot of them kind of staying with that, a lot of them crossing over. I mean, you got to see like a guy like Mikey Musumeci at the last WNO show. I mean, for him to say that no gi is the future, and flow grappling and WNO and the whole thing is the future, was a pretty profound statement, I think.
Yeah, I think I've always felt that the passion that I had competing on an amateur level, like I never did anything major. I always felt like the passion and the storytelling and just the sport in general was going to be something that, really transcended and would blow up one day. I felt that from the very beginning. And it's to no surprise that, events are growing and growing like they are. More guys are making investments like in Abu Dhabi and so forth. So the sport's growing as far as people participating. Now, when it comes to the professional level, it's interesting, right? Because there's a lot of, we're in a new era essentially of jiu-jitsu, if you really think about it, because if you're a top level competitor now, if you're a black belt, or even if you're not a black belt, if you're just like a purple belt and you're a high level competitor, you can literally fight every month. You could sell a DVD on Fanatics. You can have your own social media channels and a YouTube channel, which a lot of these guys don't do, right? But you can do all this stuff and generate a very good income. You don't have to fight MMA. You don't have to, own an academy. So it's like a new wave, a new industry has kind of emerged, and there's all these new events out there. They're all fantastic. From who's number one to Kasai was amazing. To fight to win. It's awesome. It's just all it's doing is helping the sport grow, giving more opportunities for the athletes, putting more money in their pockets, so we're in the era of professional grappling, professional jiu-jitsu. So it's amazing. I'm pretty fortunate because I get to work on the forefront, like you said, and behind the scenes. And, you mentioned like there's, different rule sets. It's great. I think variety is the spice of life. I honestly don't think that we're ever going to find the perfect rule set in grappling. I have my own theory of like how that would look, but I don't know if, that's just my opinion. And then we all have our own opinions on this, So I feel like it doesn't matter what rule set, you're always going to end up with maybe one stinker per event. It's up to the individuals. It's up to their incentives. Are they financially incentivized? I don't know if that's a word, but do they have financial incentives to perform, or are they looking to do something like Gordon where they demonstrate new techniques and then they can they can reap the benefit of it down the road with the DVD sales. So a lot of it is different. I think the thing that's different mostly now from back in the day is with the growth of the general public of jiu-jitsu, like the hobbyists, that theoretically means that there's actually more people that will watch, subscribe, and consume all the new professional jiu-jitsu, whereas like 10 years ago, it was still kind of small. So, even though grappling is, the biggest it's been ever, we still have a long way to go. I really think that what's going to happen is after the next ADCC, everything is going to be changed. The world of grappling is going to be turned upside down. I think that there's going to be a lot of like with every change and any growth, there's good things and there's bad things. There's going to be a lot of Johnny come lately promoters that come out of nowhere and say they're going to like professionalize the sport and have no idea what they're doing, and they're going to ruin things for some of these guys. And then there's going to be some people that are, have some, good financial, decision making that come into the sport that maybe they're going to start things that people don't understand. Like, it's going to be a very interesting time. But after the next ADCC, I predict, grappling is going to be, completely just blow up, being in Vegas, being with the biggest super fight of all time, potentially Andre Galvão versus Gordon Ryan. So, like, man, it's a wonderful time to be involved in the industry of grappling. And as a fan, as a practitioner, as a school owner, or not a school owner, but like as an instructor, it's amazing because we get to see the best guys compete. I get to analyze them. I get to learn from them. And for me, it's like I get to have them on my show, ask them literally, okay, I want to ask you a question so I can go pass that on to my guys and, for my own personal knowledge. So it's awesome, man. It's very, very fortunate times right now. Even though we're in the midst of a freaking pandemic, it's still it's crazy. You know what I mean?
Crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's changing the whole paradigm. Like, now you add the pandemic in there, places like Texas and Florida are like, that's open season for events, but we're still, most of the country, we are still not, able to have the old paradigm of a, traditional tournament format, if you will. It's still kind of very tough with the restrictions. But you mentioned a couple of things in there, like, you look at a guy like Gordon where, back in the day, you won a world championship. It was amazing. But there was a lot of broke world champions out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was really no path. Like you said, you had to maybe fight in the UFC, get lucky, and then, win a UFC belt. And then you have all these sponsorships. And now, guys like Gordon and things like that, you see them being able to make a great revenue with the DVD sales. And like you said, not even owning an academy, where back in the day, you win a world championship. The next step was always open an academy and hope it works out. I mean, with no business acumen, just thinking that you're getting, a world championship title would yield you some great income was really hard to come by. But now you see that change, so.
And I think the thing with Gordon too is, like, I mean, if you looked at his social post, he was like all about like, I need to make money as a champion, right? Like how, like, we should be paid better. Like really starting to look at it as like, as an athlete, we should be paid better, and really pushing that point. Like, there was a ton of posts by him over, I don't know, the last 5 years, if not more.
Yeah. The athletes, there needs to be that discussion, and there needs to be a lot of discussions. There needs to be discussions with the athletes as well. I really try to study branding in our sport and other sports as well. And, I think the issue is we have some athletes that, like you said, they're world champions, but I'm not trying to poke fun at anybody, but like they're broke, Right. And then you have guys like Gordon, they look at him, he's a world champion, of course, but like there's two extremes, you know what I mean? And so it's like we have these guys that continue to do open tournaments. It's great, they're amazing, but they don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to generate that secondary income. They don't know how to do anything else. They're still sort of stuck in this older mentality of win the tournaments, open academy, hope for the best. And you put a camera in front of them and you ask them to say something, and they're like, I do all my speaking on the mats. And you're like, all right. You know what I mean? Like no one wants to, like no one cares about that. Like
there's no personal branding. There's no personal branding. You're not gonna make those DVD sales, or you're not gonna get those followers on social channels or on your YouTube that are gonna make you money. If
you got to think of it this way. Like, okay, Gordon has whatever gazillion followers, right? Now Gordon transcends out of jiu-jitsu now. Okay, one of the reasons that he transcends out of jiu-jitsu is because he, political as it may be, good or bad, I'm not going to say what it is, not my opinion, but because he talks about other things other than just, Ashigurami every day, because he talks about polarizing subjects, he gets attention, good or bad, from people outside of the sport. Like, he's starting a freaking Instagram war with some wannabe rapper, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like, you can look at that and be like, well, that sucks. Like, maybe you shouldn't do that. Well, does it? Or does all of that guy's like 10,000 followers now are going to start looking at Gordon and now he's grown his following. So in order for any brand in the industry or any athlete's brand to transcend, we have to start thinking out of the mentality of just like, winning titles and earning money. You gotta kind of focus outwards a little bit. Look and see what all these other people, like, it's crazy. Like, look at what the Paul brothers are doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. Like, if those guys decided to come into grappling and, they handpicked a couple of grappling super fights, played the rules, you know what I mean? And won a couple matches. I'm not saying they will, but could you imagine if they did? And next thing they know, they're calling out Gordon Ryan for the biggest super fight of all time.
Right.
I mean, it could happen. So times are changing. Times are changing.
Absolutely. And it's so much focused on that brand and what they could do. And I think what happens is too, a lot of, because of sponsorship sometimes versus building their own personal brand, they're afraid, like Gordon puts himself out there, like whatever he's going to say, right? And a lot of these athletes may be a little shy of saying some of those things they believe that are polarizing to get more people to follow them outside of the context of here's some technique in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's true. But you got to look at it this way. Like, if I was talking to a buddy of mine about this today, like, let's take, whatever name world champion out there. Okay. If he goes on Instagram and posts his sponsor's tee, like, let's say he goes like this, he's like, hey guys, Show Your Roll is the best fight gear in the world. Make sure you buy it. I love it. My mom even wears it. It's great. How many world champions do you see making posts like that? A lot of them do. They don't know how to make more of a organic, more sort of like, cooler sort of marketing for their own sponsors. So that's what's going to generate more, attention for the sponsor, for the actual brand, as opposed to just making this like commercial post, because no one wants to buy that. You know what I mean? Like, what I mean? Like, seeing Gordon say like, hey, like, whatever brand it is, if you guys don't wear this, you guys suck. It's going to affect your ego a little bit, and you're not going to forget that. And now when you go shopping, you're going to be like, oh man, Gordon said, if I don't wear this, I suck. Like, you're going to think about it, especially if you're a fan. If he just says to you, hey, swipe up for a 10% off coupon, I mean, do you really want to buy it? You know what I mean? Like, you want to have your emotions played with a little bit to be able to want to do something. So I think some of these guys, they don't understand that, and it's
absolutely. Or product placement, even like having stuff in the background, like, whatever brand mats or the, these more engaging things where people just say, oh man, whoever Gordon always uses this type of mat or whatever the is, and simple stuff like that.
Absolutely. It was, I remember, so I did some stuff with, like, I had the fight shop. So I used to like, sell all the brands and stuff like that back in the day. And I would help Ed Suarez a little bit with some of the guys, like getting into Canada to fights and stuff like that. And he's going Sinister Brand, and Sinister Brand back in the day.
I remember,
it was cool. And their slogan was the brand fighters wear when they're not fighting. So it was like, we're not going to force you to see what they're using in the octagon, but when they're in the casual, when they're in the streets, when they're in the hotel lobby, they're going to wear my stuff. And I thought that was like the most brilliant thing ever. And I was like, man, that's so cool. Maybe they'll have like a little logo just out of loyalty on their UFC shorts, but it was never something that was like force fed, right down your face. And I think that it's that type of marketing that some of these guys need to do. Be a little more creative than just like, hey guys, thank you, my sponsor, please buy their stuff. Like you got to get out of that box a little bit.
Right? Yeah. Like, I love this soap. No, doesn't.
Yeah, like look at like a Craig Jones, like literally washing, having Ethan Krelestein washing his back. If he would have turned around and said, hey, I love this soap, at that moment, I guarantee you half of us would be like, what soap is that? Just jokingly. But if he sits there and says, like, look at that ad, because it's funny, because that's what Craig does. He takes a different sort of marketing tool, which is comedy, and he uses that to sell himself, or sell to get sponsors. That's why he's an advertiser's dream. You know what I mean? Gordon is too. So yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me like there's two huge paradigm shifts in the sport. Not only are we talking the shift in the competition format, the rule sets, the techniques, what's trending, what's actually working in competition, but also like we're talking about the branding of the athlete. I mean, who knew when we were all, watching the worlds and that these athletes would have their own voice on a social media channel and literally drive traffic for the sport itself.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's time. Like I said, like the sport's growing. The UFC has, Shanji said this best, the UFC promoted jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu is not capitalizing on that promotion, and the UFC helped, bring jiu-jitsu to North America and the rest of the world. And, we get weekly, promotion when those guys are doing jiu-jitsu techniques and fights, you know what I mean? So the athletes that are on their YouTube channel and the athletes that have social media, I should let me explain this. It's like you have two choices. You could watch a UFC fight and sit back with your buddies and say, "Oh, that guy's Darce choke sucks. I could do better," but you never do anything about it. Or you could say, "Hey, this is how Tony Ferguson did the Darce choke, but here's 5 details that he missed and how to do it better." Put that on your YouTube channel, blow that up, get hundreds of thousands of viewers, get your Google ad revenue, and then maybe sell a Darce choke DVD on BJJ Fanatics one day and make $500,000 like Tom DeBlas. You know what I mean? Like, so these guys,
he can make more money than he made for that fight.
Yeah,
exactly. So there's ways to do this, and I think that like you said, like the sport is growing as a competitive platform, but also the branding and the athletes' popularity and the opportunities are growing, and that's what's awesome. It's a good time to be involved.
Yeah, it just seems like a whole golden age of jiu-jitsu now. I mean, I went to the last ADCC and, with Mo in the VIP area there and just experiencing that whole event and how it differs from, an event like you guys at WNO or Kasai was. It's just a totally, different thing. And now that's going to shape, everything going forward. What do you, after this next ADCC and after now you're seeing with the shows like WNO and, I mean, what's your prediction now within the next few years of what the grappling scene is going to look like? I mean, not only rule set, but like we're talking about with the whole marketing paradigm. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's just going to continue to grow. I think there's going to be more shows coming. I think the shows, it's much like any industry. Some people want to get into the industry of promoting grappling because they think there's $1 million, but they don't know how to get there. It's hard. Like it's a hard thing. Like I've been involved in grappling promotions a long time, and I know that right now, because the audience is not big enough, what you have to do to be successful is have volume of shows. Something like what Fight to Win does, right? That's a lot of work. Doing 3 shows per month. Man, that guy Seth busts his ass off. Like, hardest working guy in the industry. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to go so over the top where you're like ADCC. That's not a financial investment there. That is, Shake Talk Noon's, thing every 2 years where he's like, here's $2 million or whatever it is. I'm contributing to the sport. Let's help it grow. So those are 2 very different ends of the spectrum. Yeah. One is to make money. One is, not. It's different. You know what I mean? And I think there's going to be always people looking at ADCC as like, oh, if I could just get grappling another event to be like that. But it's going to be hard. Like, it's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of work. It might take more than that 3-year plan you got, with 4 events a year. Like, it's a grind, Like I said, like Seth has figured it out, but it's a lot of work, doing one show, traveling, worrying about 50 fights a week, that's getting commentators, like, worrying about flights. And if this guy, like, that's a lot of stress, man. So my point is that it's attractive for promoters to get involved, but once they see the amount of work and money that's, really out there, it's going to take a little while. And those guys that maybe didn't have the smartest intentions or honest intentions will kind of fall to the side, and other people who figured it out will be around, and this is not directed at anyone in any way, but it's going to be interesting, and the more people do it, the better for the athletes, the more money they have to put in their pockets, hopefully, that continues. So it's, like I said, we're at a state now where if you're a competitive grappler, you can compete monthly, make a good secondary income. And, how is that going to be 10 years from now? Because 10 years ago, that wasn't here. It was like ADCC, World Pro, maybe Grappler's Quest, maybe a pro division. That was it. 4 things a year. And those 4 slices had to be divided by everyone in the sport. Right now, every state pretty much almost has their own promotion, to a degree, or they can, that area in a sense in the United States, and it's growing. So 10 years from now, like, I don't know if it'll come down to just being like one event promotion or another, or things will be standardized, or maybe it'll be like the World Surf League where it's like a group of professional events all work together to kind of rise up regionally or something like that.
That would be smart. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting times, anytime there's growth in an industry, it's exciting, so I'm just stoked to be there,
Yeah, no, definitely. And you mentioned like in the main things that are driving the growth of the sport. Back then, it was the UFC. Now it's things like the Joe Rogan podcast, where you see guys like Craig Jones, Danaher, and Gordon on the biggest platform on a podcast in the world. Right. And then that drives everybody to, what's jiu-jitsu? This is amazing. This is great. And then that drives everybody that's currently training jiu-jitsu, the amateur, the guy that's a hobbyist. I mean, that's what we're seeing now.
Well, even just Joe Rogan's love for jiu-jitsu, besides even having the people on there, he talks about it so much and what it's done for him.
Yeah. And it's cool to see because like Joe, when he first started his podcast, it was like, various topics, and then he would have Eddie. And then when Eddie was on, they would talk about jiu-jitsu. Then it was, DMT and aliens. And then all of a sudden it's Jean-Jacques. They're like, okay, wow. And then it's like, I don't know, whatever, conspiracy theorist, and then this, and then power lifter. Oh my God, it's Hickson. You know what I mean? So it was like, almost like once a year we got like a treat of like an actual jiu-jitsu guest on Joe Rogan. But now, I mean, the last 2 episodes, he's pretty much, been talking about who's number one and what the contribution it's made in flow grappling and stuff, because he loves it. Because he sits there, he goes to every event now. He loves it. He loves the matches. He thinks, what Flow's doing is great with the documentaries. And, it's like you guys said, what better way to promote the sport? His reach, like my brother, he listens to Joe Rogan. He doesn't care about Craig Jones. He doesn't care about Gordon Ryan.
Right.
You know why he listens to him? Hunting. Bow hunting.
Yeah.
So there you go. So my brother, he knows what jiu-jitsu is. He's like, it's from Spain, and the Garcia brothers run the show. He has no idea about anything, but like he listens to Joe Rogan because of bow hunting, and he'll tell me like, oh yeah, like, is this MMA thing still growing? Like, like once in a while, he'll hear Joe Rogan talk about it and come back to me. Who's this, Ryan Gordon guy that Joe Rogan's talking about? Like, is he good? Can he beat Gracie? You know what I mean? So if the average guy that has no interest in the sport at all is hearing jiu-jitsu because of Joe Rogan, man, it's amazing. It's the greatest promotion ever.
That's huge.
It's true.
That's huge.
Yeah, I wonder how many people have started bow hunting or jiu-jitsu just because of Joe Rogan. Forget about the UFC.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to take up bow hunting, but I don't even know if we can go outside to do that in Canada. Apparently, the COVID, the animals will give you COVID out here too.
You can transfer right from the outside.
From the deer or the moose or whatever you're hunting.
Absolutely.
So on to the next part of our podcast, which is reviewing a role.
Yeah. So part of what we do is review your role, where we're going to have the ability for people to be able to send us their videos of them rolling. And this way, we're going to be able to get back to them in overdub audio of critiquing their role, whether it's from us, a black belt. We're going to have that service right on our website. But when we do our podcast every week or every episode that we have our guests. We bring on a role that we have selected, and we go through the role and kind of critique them. So
okay, I'll warn you in advance. It's been a while since I commentated because of COVID. So
that's
you know what I mean. Let's try our best here.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So today we have a role that one of my blue belts on the left, Baleia from Hampton Jiu Jitsu. He's won the last few super fights locally and coming up through the ranks. So we have his role today. So yeah, let's see what you can point out here.
Okay. So he's kind of in a half-seated position, coming up. weaving the leg here, going to the knee cut. A great job holding off that left leg shin there to avoid connection. Pinching the leg a little bit, trying to, little kind of leg pass, not really a drag. Do a great job of like stuffing the legs in. That's a cool thing. And then switching to the leg drag, now to the ankle lock. Boom. Rotating with it, switching to the heel. Perfect. Like it's so far so good. Doing a great job. I really like seeing like if you guys can pause it, maybe go back a bit. Do you guys have that ability or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like if you're somewhat of a beginner and you're watching this, like one of the key elements I think, before he was, standing, go back a little bit more. Sometimes there you go. Pause right here. So it's just the fact that like he's doing something good, which is stuffing the legs and driving the person's knees into the chest a little bit. It makes the bottom person react by like weaving their legs, and a lot of times you'll see the guy on top, once he starts weaving, he'll pass the leg to the outside and sort of give himself the ability and freedom to move around the legs or leg drag, and sometimes when we roll, we just like we think about the what we should do in just like technique ABC, and not concentrate on these little battles that are necessary as far as like hand fighting, grip fighting, leg pummeling and stuff like that. So I really like to see that he wasn't just like jumping on the leg and kind of aggressive.
Yeah, like diving in. It's the battle of inches. Yeah,
exactly. Because at the end of the day, if he's able to pass, he's able to pass. And sometimes when the person recovers, they give you the leg in doing so, which we saw there, and that's why he sat back. He tried it once, twice, sat back, grabbed the heel. The person rolled. He stuck with it. He was a little, he was continues. He always like. Right here, boom. Just kind of pushing the legs, stuffing the knees in, back stepping, there, leg drag position. Then he goes, okay, let's end this. And then rolls with it very perfectly and goes back to the heel, boom, and finishes. Very sweet. Very basic detail, but something I always think about when I'm trying to break down stuff for the beginners, because I feel like they're the most neglected people. None of the black belts are going to watch what I have to say and appreciate it anyway. So now he's on the bottom. He's got that little X position, heading up. Looks like going for that saddle there, which I got to admit, it's not my. Now he's inverting there. It's not my big forte. Hitting the legs. Man, he's really using the dexterity and the length of his legs to his advantage here. His partner, Greg, you're probably more of a leg guy. What do you think that his partner could be doing to kind of get out of this position?
Yeah, definitely being going against somebody with some leg, acumen, you got to be able to, more than just trying to defend, you got to be able to get really good at the heel slip. I think that's like the first thing, especially with heel attacks. Leg attacks is one thing. You're talking IBJJF and you're talking, toe holds, knee bars, straight ankle locks. It's different, than just simply booting. You got to have that ability to feel, and slip the heel in specifically, I feel like if you just think about the first armbar escape that most people teach, they teach the thumb, like your thumb's got to be turned around. That's no different than what a leg would be doing. You can't just think that you're going to sit up and rip your leg out to escape a heel hook, just like you wouldn't just try to rip your arm out when somebody's locking in an armbar,
It's a lot of, like, the escape principles are very theoretically similar in that you have to start addressing the issue before you're on step 3, and then it's too late. And I think whether it's legs or arms, the mistake that the guy in the rash guard was kind of making was when he got caught, it's like he just spun. He wasn't trying to push the legs, defend the legs, get his leg out. He was just trying to roll, but the other person was just kind of going with him. And it was just too late,
I think that goes back to the point, like with the leg attacks. Yeah, see, he finished his own heel hook there, and part of training, like when you get caught in an arm bar, you know when it's extended to the point where you got to think about your tapping. I think when people start with legs, they don't know where that point is of when you have an extended limb and it's about to come on. You know what I mean? Exactly. You think about a white belt when they get caught in an arm bar, they're just trying to rip their arm out. They don't know that it's extended and about to happen and about to make you tap. So it's one of those things.
And the battle really needs to come, at the, the point of initiation and not at the end. And I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people make. Is like they try to escape at the end, and that's when you get injured. You have to battle it there. I remember still to this day, sorry to get unrelated, somebody asking Guy Mendez, how do you get out of the bow and arrow? And he was like, the mistake you made was, letting the person get to your back.
Mm-hmm.
That was so we need to address that a lot more than the actual bow and arrow escape. So it's very similar in theory to what some of these leg entanglements and escapes situations, or even the arm. It's dealing with the situation at its core at the initiation, as opposed to step 3 when it's like 50-50 whether you're going to be able to utilize maybe some of your physical attributes to defend a little bit. Like we saw with like Jonathan Alves, he was able to defend Taza's heel hook just because
that was amazing.
But that was his physical attributes. There was times where he was sticking his arms in to defend. I'm not talking about those times. That was technical. But it was a time where his heel was hooked and he was just looking at Taza in the face. But I don't know how good his heel is right now, but that's got to hurt. So back to the roll here, liking this guy's,
There goes to his heel hook again. And it's the prediction too. Like I think the guy in the rash guard, he's not realizing this is going to come on. Like, you know what I mean? So he's almost like going into that same position.
Yeah.
Like repetitively. Yeah. So he's not. It's that, okay, I feel where this is starting to go. Like a lot of times when I'm training, I feel like, okay, this is what they're going to do, or they're going to do one of these two things, and recognizing, okay, this may be what they're going to attack me with. So getting ready to even start defending it before it even gets in there.
Yeah, and I think that's something important, like with academies, especially at my academy. Yeah, no gi, we allow the heel hooks. We teach the heel hooks and the leg locks. And the gi, we stick with the IBJJF rules. But everybody knows that. And everybody going into that, everybody starts out with the basic levels of defense, escape, basic positions, even with leg attacks and heel hooks. To bring it to the point, it's like you need to know the fundamentals before you can start to go any further. I think there's a misconception that any of the heel attacks or the new school stuff is just kind of throwing it out there. But there's no learning the new unless you know the fundamentals and the old.
Yeah. What I noticed right now was the guy in the tank top. When he was in close guard, my one not critique, but just observation was, as opposed to like controlling his partner's head and posture, he was content to kind of allow him to get up, only because it looks like he was specifically going for a leg entanglement. You know what I mean? Whereas he's got those legs, he can use them. He could probably get his hips up nice and high from the close guard. And, just by simply controlling the head and bringing his posture down and putting off a lot of attacks there, use that like side close guard that Shanji does. Sometimes when you open up, as you saw, he allowed his partner to make space. His partner got up and then attacked his leg just because he was angling there. Even though he was initiating with like almost like an X guard. So, I forgot what he did there, but he initiated by opening up, but then he left his legs and he I can't remember if he got submitted, but the other guy was attacking it. So you leave it in danger. So avoids that problem by pulling the head down, getting out to the side, looking for maybe those 2-on-1 arm drags to the side. It's old school, but it's very functional, especially no-gi, because you want to have control. And since he was in that position, that's why I'm saying that.
You got to think like the no gi, like you're saying, like if you want to keep that closed guard, you're not going to be susceptible to leg attacks in that point. Anytime you're opening the guard, you're opening up to all sorts of different options, leg entanglements. So that's definitely
exactly. I mean, closed guard it's not 1998 anymore where people are doing arm bar from closed guard no gi. It just doesn't happen anymore. Now it's 2-on-1s to the outside back. It's tangling that arm, like it's just different. It's just a different game now, so otherwise you're opening up because you want to let the game flow a little bit, but then you're, more susceptible to getting attacked on you. So those are sort of like the new norms, 2-on-1, going to the back, head control, looking for the triangles, slipping out, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, we appreciate your input on that, and that's part of that uniqueness of the show we're trying to bring is the have subscribers submit their roles to us, and then we'll pick one every week, or every podcast,
and having high level guys like yourself actually being able to critique them for them.
I appreciate that. I don't know how high level I am these days. I haven't rolled in a little while. I'll be honest with you, man.
I think we all feel that way.
The commentating eyes, though, man. You have that. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing that for a while, so I hope somebody learns from that, and I mean, it's cool to kind of play this again. Now I'm getting the itch to commentate once more.
So we'll have to have you back on to write another one.
Yeah. So let's shout out all of the abilities to see you and your show, the Flow Grappling and your personal channel. Let's throw those out there. What do you got?
Yeah, so you guys can check out on Flow Grappling. Just put Baleia's Breakdown Show on the search. I don't do it weekly. I kind of do it when I can and when it's really important, But I've had every guest on there from Marcelo Garcia to Gordon Ryan, Val, I've had a lot of really big names on the, you guys will enjoy it. And we do something similar, but I actually take their matches, break it down, have them explain it, and I ask them, fan questions. So if you guys check that out on Flow, it's awesome. We actually put the Marcelo Garcia episode up on YouTube, so that's out for free. Check that out. It was a lot of fun. That was one of my most favorite episodes. And then my channel, youtube.com/Riccardo Ammendolia BJJ. You might have to take a look at that link. I don't know if you're going to remember how to spell that, but
we'll add it in the description for you, man.
Yeah, from there you can see I do some technical breakdowns. I got my classic matches. I used to have the podcast. I'm doing some of those maybe in the near future. A lot of very, very rare stuff that no one has. So definitely, please subscribe to the channel and, check me out on social media, Riccardo Ammendolia BJJ as well.
Thank you so much, Riccardo. We appreciate your time today, man.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. And hopefully I'll be down in New York and we can roll and you guys can break my heels.
Yeah, got to get you down here to Hampton Jiu Jitsu, man. Let's do it.
Look forward
Absolutely.